You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
GOP lost its most effective tool to smooth talk Trump as House spirals into doom. Report, based on an article by Matthew Chapman. Trump's Party of Dependence. The story beneath the story. The source frames Lindsey Graham as a crucial Republican mediator, a man who could smooth over friction between Donald Trump and congressional Republicans. That is the surface. The real story is uglier, a party so organized around one dominant leader that its lawmakers need a personal translator to function at all. When the system cannot move without flattery, access, and backchannel reassurance, the problem is not a missing liaison. The problem is the regime of dependence itself. Who actually holds power? The article is frank about one thing: Trump is the dominant figure. That matters more than any Senate title or House procedural rule. Republicans in Congress are not described as governing on their own terms. They are managing Trump's demands, trying to keep him from detonating their own legislative agenda, and scrambling to protect a razor-thin majority while he pressures them on the Save America Act, a voter restriction package. That is the institutional reality. Trump sets the terms. The rest of the caucus reacts. Graham was not the center. Graham's role, as described here, was not to lead so much as to lubricate. He appeased the MAGA wing, sued Senate institutionalists, and used personal relationships, including with Democrats, to keep the machinery from seizing up. That is not statesmanship. It is damage control for a party that has outsourced judgment upward and accountability nowhere. The article treats his loss as a setback for Republican efficiency. Fine. But efficiency in service of what? A party agenda that depends on voter restriction, internal discipline, and fear of Trump's wrath deserves to be slowed down. Paralysis is sometimes the only honest thing a broken majority can produce. The misdirection game. The framing softens deliberate political choices into procedural inconvenience. House Republicans are not merely struggling to reconcile competing demands. They are choosing loyalty to a dominant leader over functioning governance. Mike Johnson's 2-vote margin is not an accident of arithmetic. It is the consequence of a caucus that cannot govern without constant crisis management. The article also slips into the familiar trick of treating anti-democratic policy as just another item on the calendar. The Save America Act is not a neutral bill in an overloaded agenda. It is part of the machinery of voter restriction. Calling it the agenda drains the conflict of its intent and hides the power grab inside legislative jargon. The South Carolina ripple. The looming South Carolina primary only sharpens the picture. Reps. Nancy Mace, Ralph Norman, Russell Fry, and Joe Wilson are all mentioned in a context where ambition itself becomes a governing threat, because a Senate vacancy could weaken the House majority further. That is not a healthy party with a surplus of talent. It is a brittle operation where every personal move is measured against the needs of a fragile, Trump-bound coalition. The calls, the pressure, the calculations, the fear of losing a vote by one member running for the Senate. This is what a democracy on the defensive looks like when one faction has decided that power matters more than governing. The pattern. This story is not really about one senator's death or one procedural bottleneck. It is about a political party built to obey a strongman while pretending it is still a normal legislative institution. Its leaders are not solving problems. They are preserving leverage. Its internal conflicts are not signs of pluralism. They are symptoms of a coalition that has made itself structurally dependent on authoritarian discipline. That is the larger lesson here. When one man can derail a majority, reward loyalty, and force lawmakers to organize around his impulses, the institution is already compromised. The news may call that paralysis. A more honest label is obedience with a thin procedural veneer. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Ross Story for today's article. With the automated voice of Sam, thanks for listening.